What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, Coach Steve. And with me, as always, is my main man, Jabron Curtis. What's going on, Jibs?
Ain't much. Just waiting for this Thursday night game. I know this fantasy season's kind of winding down, and I'm looking at these trade deadlines. I'm trying to make some last-minute moves, but besides that, I'm just hoping for some good football for the rest of the season.
Oh, yeah, man,
No
definitely.
injuries. People
No more injuries. We've had all the injuries I think we could have in one season. I'm hoping we're done for the year. I hope there's no more major injuries left to worry about. But yeah, guys, this is episode 176. Man, we're getting close to 200. We'll hit 200, I think, before next season starts. It's going to be hyped. But it's week 11, guys. It's week 11's here. Thursday Night Football's on tonight. That's going to be an okay game. No, Cordell Patterson. But there's definitely a lot to talk about tonight. We have to talk about our sleepers, our bust, and some fringe players that you're considering possibly starting or not this week. So in terms of news, guys, again, there's not too much. We'll hopefully feel most of the injuries tomorrow. Nick Chubb is still on that COVID train right now. I'm hoping that he gets cleared because I need him to kind of play this week. But yeah, nothing major in terms of news this possible week here. I know Jared Goff's not really practicing right now. A couple people not practicing. Again, it's early on in the week. Alvin Kamara is not practicing once again. We might mention some Mark Ingram talk later. But yeah, injuries will hit us tomorrow around 3 or 4 p.m. That's usually when injury reports come out, seeing who's inactive, at least for the most part, on Friday. So there's not much to talk about like last week. There was so much to talk about last week, but not this week. So, all right, guys, we'll just kind of get right into tonight, guys. And, of course, you know what we do here. We start with our quarterback sleepers. So, Coach Jibbs, who's your quarterback sleeper for Week 11?
For me, I'm going with Justin Fields. To me, I just like watching him play over the last 2 weeks. It seems like he's hitting his stride in his rookie year. Granted that, especially against a tough matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then his matchup on paper this week is decent against the Baltimore Ravens. They do give up the 11th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. But this defense has been playing a little bit better since their bye week. And I'm expecting Fields to do a little bit more of what he did the last 2 weeks, throw out 25 to 30 pass attempts for this game. And he'll probably get a touchdown because he hasn't really scored more than one game this year. But I expect him to be a little bit more efficient on the ground. And obviously, those rushing numbers give you a higher floor and it'll boost your confidence to start him. So I like Fields as a sleeper quarterback this week.
Oh, yeah, Fields is good. He was definitely coming along real well right before that bye week. I'm hoping during the bye they really found ways to kind of use his skill sets to more of his advantage, like the deep ball and his run game. The only thing that Ravens haven't allowed too much in terms of rushing this year, but Fields is a tremendous talent, and if he can kind of show us what he showed against a pretty tough Steelers defense, that Ravens defense is pretty night and day, honestly. We saw it against the Miami Dolphins last week. They're pretty night and day in terms of playing against quarterbacks. So this could be a really fun, interesting game for Fields' first game off of his bye week. So I love that, Jibs. For me, guys, I went with Trevor Simeon. Really weird name to say because I would have probably never thought about saying Trevor Simeon's name at the beginning of the season. But that's what we are right now in fantasy, guys. And, you might say Trevor Simeon, has he really been that good? He's been pretty solid for the most part. He's led this team there so far and played well with it. Sean Payton knows how to play football. He knows how to coach a team, and he's coached his team pretty well since, Jameis Winston has been gone. And every single week, Trevor Simeon has gotten better and better. Started with a QB3, QB2, now QB1 last week against the Tennessee Titans. While now that might have been a little bit of an easier matchup, Philly is more of a above-average team, but I think if you're looking at all the teams that with quarterback situations, especially on the down end of the rankings currently right now, Simeon's kind of stands out because the Saints are a good football team and they'll find ways to score on teams no matter how good the team is. Yet Philly has been pretty good, but for the most part, they kind of on and off when it comes to quarterback. They've allowed multi-quarterback touchdown games, in 3 of the last 5 games now, and I wouldn't put it against them to guys like Derek Goff, some of these guys that they played, they put up fantasy numbers. Again, it hasn't been great, but they're also playing bad offenses. The Saints are a good offense. And I think if you're looking for a bye week replacement this week, if you didn't already pick them up and you're looking for a quarterback to help you stream this week, I think Simeon's can offer you that floor game that kind of puts him around that 18, 19 fantasy mark for you in week 11. You're on mute, Jibs.
I can't co-sign on that. I love the analysis though, but can't be starting them against my Birds at home.
No, I get it, dude. I get it. But if you're looking for that sleeper pick, there's not many this week here. Everyone is basically at the top in terms of who you're playing this week. So, gotta find some snails in the barrel of fish. That's how I see it. So, but let's get over to the quarterback bust this week, Jib. And who is someone you're kind of down on this week in fantasy?
I'm down on Kyler Murray, and it's not that I don't think he's a good quarterback or he's a bad quarterback or anything like that. It's just like over this last couple of months or so, just seeing some of these fantasy players come back from injury, even some of these quarterbacks like Russell Wilson, like Tyrod Taylor, they just seem to be kind of out of it. Dak Prescott as well. They seem to be out of it the first game back. So I'm going to lower my expectation on his output there first and foremost. And then secondly, I didn't really like what I saw Kyler Murray without DeAndre Hopkins, who hasn't been in practice either this week. And we know how that Arizona Cardinals offense, it's very deep offensively with the wide receiver core that they have. But still, we know how that offense, it runs through DeAndre Hopkins, which Kyler Murray operates well with. So I'm kind of thinking Kyler Murray he won't be a superstar this week, but I don't think I want to have him ranked as a top 5 to 7 quarterback for me, honestly, just based off what I've been feeling. But obviously you could definitely start him. He's your number 1 quarterback, but I'm just worried about the output and how he performs.
Yeah, no, I understand your worries with him right now. And yes, he's practicing this week here. That's great to hear, obviously. But again, is that injury something that's going to affect him during the game? Like you said, he hasn't played well with Hopkins. So in a tougher matchup, they do play the Seattle Seahawks, a division rival this week. Huh?
Brutal matchup. They're being lights out against quarterbacks last month.
Exactly. So it's the fact is that he's coming off injury. You can't expect him to be at his top level off the bat. I think you have to lower your expectation that he's more of that, do I start him or do I start like Ryan Tannehill this week? And I think you have to lean a different direction, even with Kyle Murray's, elite fantasy production he's shown us this year. So, I definitely like that take there, Chips, for sure. On my side, guys, I went with Kirk Cousins this week. Kirk Cousins is pretty good for fantasy football. He got back in that QB1 status this past week here, but they do play the Green Bay Packers this week, and the Green Bay Packers have basically shut down quarterbacks over the last month, the last 5 games, 6 games. Since week 4, they've only allowed 1 quarterback to throw more than 1 touchdown pass. Kirk Cousins is good, but he's just not throwing enough for me to consider that a really big thing. And I think this is a game where they might try to run the ball more consistently. And they're playing Green Bay, and Green Bay has just locked quarterbacks down. And I don't think Kirk Cousins, for the most part, I know, Milo, I know. I don't think many times Kirk Cousins in his career versus the Packers, it hasn't been really that great, honestly. He hasn't performed to that top level notch we all want him to do in fantasy. And this could be a trap game for players who think, oh, Kirk Cousins is just a safe play. He's going to get you your 22 fantasy points, and it's going to be called a day. I'm saying differently. That defense is looking good. It's starting to get healthier. And I think you're possibly looking at other directions at quarterback this week, because I'm not a fan of Kirk Cousins in fantasy for week 11. So he is my bust at quarterback position. But in terms of fringe quarterback play, there's really none. You starting Cam Newton if you have Cam Newton. Jibs?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I would. You start him over guys like Rodgers this week. You start him over Tannehill, or is he just? He's not there yet.
He's not there yet for me. But I wouldn't be surprised if he has as much upside as those 2 quarterbacks, and the end of the week scoring wise.
Okay. I could see it too. They do play. He definitely has a great matchup. I think if you lean that direction, I think you could feel pretty safe that he should provide you with enough fantasy floor that will make your fantasy pretty much decent at least. So he's okay to start, but again, some of the elite guys are still, you start them over guys like Cam, but Cam is definitely startable this week for sure. So, all right, let's head over to the RBs now. RB sleepers this week, Jibs. Who you got as your main sleeper at the RB position?
I like Dr. Foreman, and I was watching the way he played last week. I was a little disappointed that he couldn't. I couldn't add him in my leagues, and we saw him pretty much run the best in that middling Titans backfield, and he had a meddling 3 yards per carry, 11 times for 30 yards. But he did have a splash in the receiving game. He had 2 catches for 48 yards. And with Jeremy McNichols kind of banged up with that concussion, maybe if he doesn't clear protocol, you could see Foreman actually become more of a 3-down back just because he did have some kind of utility. I know he's not really profiles as a receiving back, but maybe he get a little bit of that work. I'm not saying like 5 catches, but still, they just have like a 4-2 catches again. I think that could like sustain that. And obviously, I don't think they're gonna bring in AP to do that either. I think AP is basically just that short yardage situation type running back. So I can see Foreman having a great matchup against the Houston Texans this week. He'll have 10th most points and he'll allow to run up the score in 6 straight games. Just got to see which side of that coin it falls on.
I love it. I love it. Honestly, I think it's a great sleeper pick this week. You know, we mentioned him in the waiver wire show, and now we'll mention him here, guys. He's definitely a player you want to target to be a flexible option for you because, like Jim said, I mean, if Peyton should be up in this game, and they're not going to have AP grinding the ball out. He's old. He shouldn't be in there grinding the ball out constantly. Dante Foreman is still young, and they're probably going to use him in that third and fourth quarter range a lot more, and you'll probably see upwards of 15 carries this week at least, and provide you with a solid low end RB2 numbers if everything goes right for him. So, love that pick there, Jibs. For me, guys, man, I went with Dearness Johnson. I'm giving Dearness Johnson another bout this week in fantasy football, and if you've held on to him, you know he has potential as a high end RB3 this week, and it could be even better. You know, Nick Chubb is trending in the right direction. And if he does, and this sleeper pick is more if Nick Chubb does play. You know, if no Nick Chubb, obviously Deontay Johnson's a start. No questions asked. But say Nick Chubb plays, I do believe he gets cleared from COVID. And we've seen these stories with COVID so far where players have had situations where they're just not to 100% coming off COVID. I mean, I get it. I've had it. I understand how it kind of can linger around in your system here. And he's a running back. His main job is to run the ball. And, that those effects that we don't really look at too much for a lot of fantasy owners here, that they need to be, brought up a little bit more. So I think if Nick Chubb is active, which I believe he is, Dearness Johnson's going to see a big workload. We talked about, and when Nick Chubb was just there by himself, Dearness Johnson didn't really play that much. I think that changes this week. I think in a situation where the Lions are that bad, they're the 5th worst team in points per game against running backs, that they're going to run the ball. Baker Mayfield is banged up. They're going to try to keep the ball out of his hand as much as possible. I think Nick Chubb runs the ball, but I think Dearness Johnson gets in there, and I think he ends up having a really solid game that if you're looking for a running back to rely on this week, I think Dearness Johnson is a pretty clear-cut guy that you can use as a sleeper option for you in fantasy.
Ooh, nice flex, high-end flex for you this week, huh?
Flex, I love it. High-end flex. That's a great way to call Dearness Johnson this week. I will be starting him in some leagues this week for sure. So, over on above side, though, we have some guys we're lower on this week, Jibs. And who is that guy for you?
Saquon Barkley, and hopefully he should be back this week. And it's well warranted. The Giants do need him, and he'll be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in prime time. The Bucs have had this elite run defense over the last 2 years, but they have shown some cracks in their armor the last couple of weeks. We've seen Herbert have 100 yards. We've seen Gibson grind it out for 64 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. But for long story short, against the Tampa Bay Bucs defense, I think Barkley's upside will be lowered because obviously I don't think he's going to be getting the 16 to 20 rush attempts that these running backs have had and have done well against Tampa Bay. And obviously with him being in limited fashion in practice later in the week, I believe he'll share the work a little bit. So for Barkley to recuperate some of that value for him and some of the confidence you need to start him, he'll have to make some work, getting some receptions from Daniel Jones, probably like 5 or 6 when you're playing in half PPR or PPR leagues. So that's my opinion on Barkley, but obviously it's week 11 and you guys been holding this guy for so long and so long. Like, I don't think you could kind of afford to sit him, but just lower your expectations and let Barkley rock. Hopefully you have some good output.
Yeah, I think for if Barkley starts, you have to play Barkley. It's just a known fact. I mean, he is a tremendous talent, but again, the matchup's tough, and I think you have to, like Jim said, lower your expectation. Expect a 10-point game out of him. That's it. Expect him to get maybe 40 yards and a couple catches that keep him fantasy relevant in half-point PPR leagues. I wouldn't expect too much out of him, but I mean, you can't expect much out of most running backs outside the top 20 probably. So you have to start him. He's an auto start, so he's got to be an auto start, but it's not great here. Hey, let's see. Oh, a little Unwrapped network there. Some more boys Unwrapped. Do you start Mike Davis or Myles Gaskin PPR leagues?
I'm going Gaskin, and I don't even want to even look at Davis.
Oh, God. You know what? To be honest, to me, it's a tough one, honestly. And honestly, the Patriots do allow like the most receptions to running backs currently this season, 71 on the year. I mean, I'd probably go Gaskin because it's safer, but Mike Davis is definitely interesting with Patterson out, just because I think Davis gets like 8 targets in this game and sees like 7 catches. I think if it's
I don't know.
I'm still thinking Gaskins, but Davis could end up having a pretty solid game because of his targets and receptions. That's all. But I don't want to play Atlanta tonight if I don't have to. I'd rather just wait till the weekend because you're going to be mad when he gets like 9 points on the night.
Taking yourself the whole weekend.
I'd rather just let Gaskins ride it out if that's the case. But it's definitely
if you do that. You even have more options that come available if like some news digresses with running back injuries. So it's not like you're locked in. I know I wouldn't want to lock myself into Davis Thursday night when I have maybe 2 or 3 other options that could come available.
Right. I'd rather wait on the situation if I can. I understand if you have to make a sit, but yeah. I'm not really trying to start either one, honestly, because I don't know. What if Wayne Gallman is a thing, and that's the only thing that scares me slightly? So,
like, look at this one. So, like, Chris Carson doesn't practice. I just had a notification. Alex Collins did not practice Thursday. So, boom, find your back.
Travis homers for me. So yeah, Unwrapped. I'm gonna lean Gaskins like Jib. So, great question though. Let's see. Yes, and it is, boys. You're killing it. Hey, appreciate that. Always follow Unwrapped Sports Network, guys. They got everything a network needs. They have it for you. So, love you guys. All right, Jibs. So, back over to the RB bust. I believe it was my turn now. And for me, guys, my RB bust this week is David Montgomery. And Montgomery came back off his injury before their bye week and basically just stole the workload. I was a bit surprised off that, honestly. I didn't think he'd get the workload that much. But obviously, he's their main back when he's there, apparently. And again, the matchup sounds good, right? Because the Ravens, they're pretty average against running backs. And the one thing about them is they have allowed a 60-yard rusher in, 8 and 9 games. And I'm really not selling the Montgomery fade right now, and I get it. But most of their production in terms of fantasy points has been because they've led a lot of touchdowns to the running back position here. I think this is not a week where you can trust the Bears fully on the ground because I feel like they're going to be behind in this game here. And I think they're going to have to rely on Fields a lot more. And I think they're going to use Fields more, hence why Jibbs likes him as a sleeper in the passing game, which I didn't see Fields throw the ball too much to running back when he's been the starter so far this season here. Montgomery's part of his, his niche was that he was starting to see more targets in the receiving game, which he did see too this past the week before. But I really do believe this is a game where they're going to be behind, and Dave Montgomery's value is going to decrease as the game goes on, where they're not going to be able to use him to their full advantage as if they were winning games. So for me, I think Dave Montgomery's right now RB14 in terms of fantasy pros. I got to lower him down to like closer to 20 because I'm not buying him coming back and automatically off the bat being an RB1 again for us in fantasy. All right, Jib. So let's talk about some fringe guys, some guys people are considering starting right now here. Let's see where we're at here. Mark Ingram, do you play him if no Alvin Kamara?
Of course.
Oh, yeah, you have to play him. Oh, we have another one here. Unwrapped. All right, loving the questions tonight. Let's see.
On the kitchen sink.
No, you still sit Mike Davis. Still sit Mike Davis, guys. I'm not as big as a fan of Montgomery, but I'm definitely not a fan enough to put him over Mike Davis.
I
Our
agree.
busts are more like lower your expectation for him. And sometimes like this one, Dave Montgomery is definitely more of that lower expectation kind of guy. Not a guy that you have to just sit. You just don't expect him to be that RB1 that you think he could be. It's more of a low end two. Well, Mike Davis at best, I think, is a low end two. So, and that's Mike Davis's best. So, yeah, good job clarifying that. Thank you guys. All right, so let's see, Jibs. Who do we have here? Oh yeah, Mark Ingram. You play him if no. Oh, we already said that. We already talked about that. My bad. Let's see here. Ooh, do you play any of the Bills running backs?
I'm still torn on him. Like I know I could get some production out of him, but I kind of want to still stay away. Maybe I'll
Yes.
lean Zach Moss just in case like it's flow out time and he gets a little bit more work in the fourth quarter. But besides that, I don't want to do nothing with him.
Nope. I have no interest there. Tough defense they have to play in the Colts on the run game at least. Not really looking to start any Bills guys. Do you start any of your Eagles running backs this week?
Nope.
Nope. Me neither. I think if you have to start one, you start Howard. If obviously Miles Sanders isn't playing, if Sanders plays, I'd play Sanders if he plays. Howard would be the guy too, but I'm not looking to start many of these guys. So let's see, who else do we have here? Kenyan Drake versus the Bengals. Do you like Kenyan Drake's opportunity after a pretty bad week last week?
No, not really. I still think with this new coaching staff, I think they want to get Kenyan Drake some work, but it's still the Josh Jacobs show.
Yeah, if it's full point PPR, I'd be considerate as a flex guy. I mean, you saw when the Raiders were at their best, they were throwing the ball to Kenyan Drake. Bengals are pretty, vulnerable to the passing game to running backs. So you could give it an opportunity. It's risky, but I would consider him for sure. Let's see here. Do you play Jeff Wilson if Elijah Mitchell's out?
I would, because I was considering playing Elijah Mitchell, and we see Kyle Shanahan kind of stick to having one guy this kind of year, and I think Jeff Wilson kind of performed in his like limited time that he was used last week, so I like a lot of him. I'll play him.
Yeah, if obviously no Mitchell, I think Jeff Wilson can be a start for sure. If they both play, I don't know. I mean, I'd probably lower Elijah Mitchell this week if you have him out there. I don't think he's going to see the production, especially with that injury, this surgery he just got this past week. Yeah, I wouldn't really like that much. Let's see here. Who else can we mention? Do you play Tony? Do you play Adrian Peterson?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay. Do you play any of the Ravens running backs, Freeman or Murray?
Um,
I'd avoid.
I would want to avoid him, but like I don't think.
I would avoid them if I could.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not going to start them. Honestly, I don't feel. Yeah, and that's really Naeem Hines is a sleeper for me personally. I know it's the Bills, but I feel like they're going to be behind in this game, and his usage will be probably used more. So I like him as a sleeper. I mentioned on our Twitter page at Coach's Fantasy, but yeah, I think he's a sleeper. Just wanted to throw that out there. So, all right, let's head over to the wide receivers now. Jibs, who is your wide receiver sleeper this week?
I like Rashad Bateman, and he's been getting somewhat involved in the passing offense over, I guess, since he's come back off the injured reserve. Since week 6, he's been the third target getter on the offense behind Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, obviously. He's been playing an average of 62% of the snaps, and each week he's been showing an upward slope in his fantasy production. He scored 6, 9, 11, 10.2 and 14 points in PPR leagues. Yeah, got it, your cat. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bears get the 4th most points to wide receiver, so I think it's all looking good in Rashad Bateman and I guess the Ravens passing offense this week.
Yeah, big Rashad Bateman fan now. I mean, oh man, I was down on him coming out of the draft here, but Seen him play now with this Ravens team, especially with obviously Jackson taking that next step as a passer. Yeah, I'm liking some Bateman, and the Bears are not good against wide receivers. So great play here this week, Jibs. Love that pick. And I'm going to actually choose another rookie myself here, and it's Elijah Moore for the New York Jets. They do play my Miami Dolphins, and while the Dolphins have looked much better on defense, the one big kicker is his quarterback now. He doesn't have Mike White throwing little dump passes off to the running backs. He doesn't have, Zach Wilson doing that currently either right now. You have a guy in Joe Flacco who loves to air the ball deep. You just give Elijah Moore space to run downfield and outbeat his defender, which he could. And I think you're going to see a nice game out of him, a game that's very consistent throughout where it's not. And maybe it's just garbage time, but Elijah Moore has thrived in garbage time all season, the last few weeks at least. And I think you could be pretty happy that he'll be a very successful wide receiver this week for you in fantasy that you could start as a flexible option this week. I have a lot of faith in him to really perform to that next level, and I think you should be pretty okay with him as your starting quarterback this week. So, starting wide receiver this week if you're looking for a wide receiver to play. So, Elijah Moore is my guy. So, all right, Jibs, over to the wide receiver bust now, though. Who do you got? Who you down on?
Scary Terry Mclaurin. And it's more about his matchup, I guess, and his team too. But Carolina Panthers give the third fewest points to wide receivers, and since week 7, the Panthers have been locked down on defense. I don't know if that kind of coincides when Stephon Gilmore returned to the lineup off IR whenever he got traded to the team. But they have made wide receivers have less than 63 receiving yards per game. They only have allowed 1 touchdown during that same time span. And the Washington football team operates erratically. We kind of see that with Terry McLaurin's play. As pretty much, it looks like he plays 2 bad games as a good game, and it's kind of due that he has a good game. But I don't feel it this week, obviously, against this elite secondary, and I just don't like his odds, especially with Stephon Gilmore breaking all over him.
Oh, wow. Hate to talk bad about Terry McLaurin because he's such a tremendous talent. But, yeah, Jib's kind of read the cards right. I mean, it's not an easy matchup for him this week here. And he just really hasn't performed, honestly. That's the big kicker. He really just hasn't. I mean, if you look at Terry McLaurin's stats right now, I mean, if I can find them real quick here, I mean, he's had, just one wide receiver, one performance since week 5. I mean, it's something that you have to take and look at it with a microscope that, yeah, he's just not performing to what we want right now. And it's not him per se. It's the quarterback situation. It's the talent around him. He's just not getting open on single coverages right now. He's being double teamed constantly on the field right now. And I think if you're starting him based off his name recognition right now, I think you might end up with a really poor week where he sees 3 or 4 catches for like 40 yards at best this week. I think it's not going to be a great week for Scary Terry. Personally, I like that, Jibs, a lot. And for me, guys, I went with an older guy, and Adam Thielen. They play the, Green Bay Packers, as mentioned before, with Kirk Cousins as a bust too. And it just seems like so far, Adam Thielen has just one game as a wide receiver once since also week 5. And, it's funny that they kind of match like that. But no, it's actually since week 4. He has had just one wide receiver, 1 performance, and just one wide receiver, 2 performance. And he's clearly the second guy on this team now. This is Justin Jefferson's team now. And the Packers, man, they have shut down the Seattle offense, the Chiefs offense. They basically shut down the Cardinals offense too. And they've been looking nice in that secondary over the last few weeks here now. And I just don't expect much of a big game from this Minnesota Vikings offense in the air. And I think if you could look another direction, like Elijah Moore, not even Elijah Moore, probably Rashard Bateman, I would consider starting over a guy like Adam Thielen this week because I just don't like his upside. I don't think he has an upside. I think it's more of a floor game, and I don't think it's a very high floor game. So I think if you could look a different direction for a guy like Adam Thielen, I would consider it. All right, Jib. So let's get over to
in a row. Love it.
Yeah. What'd you say?
I see he's a bust 2 weeks in a row.
He sure is, and he was not good last week. I mean, at best, wide receiver 3 was last week, but not the great week we want from him. But let's talk about some fringe guys we might want to play this week here. Let's see. Are you starting any of the Bears wide receivers?
I'll definitely rev up Mooney as a good flex option.
Okay, I like that. Mooney is definitely a guy I would consider for sure if I'm looking for a wide receiver. Definitely not Allen. Do you start Robbie Anderson after a touchdown last week?
I might be doing that.
I think if you're projected to lose a lot, he could be a guy that you could throw in there and hope for the best. If you plan on being a close matchup, I would not consider it. It's too risky. But if you're looking for a big play, he's a big play guy.
I had the all bus crew at the wide receiver position.
Oof,
I have
that's
Jones,
rough.
Boyd,
Rough.
Tony,
That's rough.
Mclaren,
So
Bobby
do you
Anderson.
start? Oh God, Robbie Anderson.
Yeah,
Do you start
I
any
just pick
Jags
him up.
receivers?
Jets?
No, not Jets. Jags.
Jags. Marvin Jones, no.
Maybe Jamal Agnew for me,
That
honestly.
Agnew's shown that he can make ability either rushing or he's just doing it all. So he's been
He's a
like
nice inside guy like Robbie
coveted.
Anderson.
So
Yeah. No, definitely. What about any of the Cleveland Browns for wide receivers?
if I had to pick one, it would be Landry. But other than that, I just don't want to play any of them.
I wouldn't want to play any of them. I mean, Peoples Jones would be another one of those Robbie Anderson types that big playability, but very risky kind of player. So, but I wouldn't really want to start.
Injury report though. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday.
He didn't, yes, but if he does play, he could end up playing. Who knows? Who knows? Let's see here. No Saints running wide receiver for you?
Oh, Harris.
I'm
Or
gonna
Smith.
say
They're like the same. They're the same person. Like I definitely had him as a waiver ads, but you're splitting hairs with him.
right. Yeah, I plan on not starting any of them. What about Tyler Boyd? Do you play Tyler Boyd against the Raiders?
No,
No Tyler Boyd. Yes,
no.
no Tyler Boyd.
Unless like the Bengals came out of the bye week and they're like, oh, we gotta do more concerted effort to kind of just put the offense around. But before that, it's been like Boyd's 3, and then he even get a look the last week. And he had like a catch and he didn't even get nothing. So no.
No. Okay.
You can fire up Higgins and Chase with supreme confidence.
Do you play? Let's see. Any of the Cardinals wide receivers? Not including Hopkins. Like, do you start Kirk, AJ Green, Rondell Moore?
Kirk will be the highest for me.
Kirk is the only one I'd probably start right now. Maybe Green in deeper leagues, but just Kirk really. I don't know if Kirk Murray might not even play.
It depends on the starter though too. So.
Right. If someone besides Murray starting, I'm not starting any of them. Besides Kirk. Kirk has produced on a week-to-week basis to me. I'm okay with it. Let's see here. That's kind of all I really want to get into. I mean, Marcus Johnson, you gotta like him as a sleeper this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the #1 waiver wire pickup. So, I like him as a sleeper as well. Again, I don't trust it completely, just because I just want to make sure that do it 2 times in a row, then I'll believe you a little bit. But 1 week's not going to prove it at all. But he has the opportunity this week.
I wish the matchup like the game. I wish they had a better opponent because I feel like it would be more fruitful instead of the Houston Texans. Like I feel like that game could get out of hand quick and it's just killing clock.
Right. That's how I feel about it. That's why Deontay Foreman's up there for you. So, all right, guys. So we're going to head over to the tight ends now. So who's your sleeper tight end this week, Jibs?
I'm going to give it up to my boy, lowly listed Jeff Swain, who's slowly making his ascension to the tight end the sleeper list. But literally, like, the guy is getting on a light. That's what I'm going to start calling him. And he's basically caught 4 catches the last 3 games. He scored 2 out of the last 3 games he scored last week, but still, for someone who's been involved in the Tennessee Titans offense, lacking Julio Jones, you never know. We've seen Tannehill actually throw a touchdown, their own 4 touchdown passes to tight ends over the span too. So he's looking at him in the red zone. You just got to hope it's not Michael Pruitt or if Anthony First finally comes back from the mat, but they look like they like Jeff Swain, and he's getting run on the offense. His snap share is actually shown for it, even though I know he's more of a black and tight end, but to see him get the receiving work, I kind of like that.
Right. No, I like Jeff Swain. Jeff Swain's been solid all year, honestly. Not all year. He's been solid the last few, at least month or so now, but he's definitely a sleeper type of tight end for sure that could produce for you in fantasy. I know I had to pick him up in a league or two, so I like that. So my sleeper tight end is actually Adam Trotman. They play the Eagles, and unfortunately, the Eagles do give up the most fantasy points on a per game basis to tight ends right now. They really much lock down wide receivers. So I think Trevor Simeon, since he started playing, honestly, Adam Trotman's seen at least 6 targets in 3 straight games now, and it seems to be, Trevor Simeon seems to be wanting to target the tight ends a little bit more. And in a matchup where it's favorable, I think you could probably get away with a sleeper guy like Adam Trotman, and he could end up getting you maybe 40 yards and a touchdown this week in fantasy. So I like him as a sleeper this week to produce.
That's because they're scared to throw to the Slaymaker, man.
Yeah,
that's why they're targeting on the Titans.
Marquez Callaway's about to get shut down. All right, Jit. Over to the Bucs. Who do you got? It's the Bucs are hard this week, but who do you got your expectation on?
I'm putting my money on Mark Andrews this week. And yeah, that's what it is. The Bears, besides last week's blunder where they gave up 2 touchdowns to Pat Freiermuth, they only allowed 1 tight end to score this year. So total's 3 so far this year. Still don't like that number, especially since we played 10 games. And even so, the Bears allow the fewest yards to tight ends in the NFL, just 29.9, 30 yards per game. And I know Mark Andrews is an elite specimen at the tight end position, but the most yards they allowed was 68 to Higbee in week 1. And I can expect that at Mark Andrews, but the touchdown possibility or probability, I'm a little skeptical on. So that's why I'm lowering my expectations on Mark Andrews. And that's why he's my tight end bust this week.
All right. I like it. Honestly, I have Andrews, I think, down at 4 or 5 right now in my ranking. So that's usually a little bit lower than he usually is for me.
That's the lower expectations marks after 2.
Exactly, basically. So for me, guys, my tight end bust, and I guess I cheated a little bit here, but I went Zach Ertz just outside the top 12. I mean, he's done okay the last few weeks, but the Panthers have been really good against tight ends. I don't even know if Murray's starting this week here. And yeah, it's not what we expected when his first game he came here and he blew it up big. And ever since then, he's just been pretty mediocre, not seeing even more than 8 fantasy points in any of the last 3 games he's played in. In a tough matchup, I'd rather just sit him and go in a different direction here for you in fantasy. I mean, Cole Kmet's a guy I'd rather start over him this week, and his upside he prevents. I don't think Zach Ertz presents us with much of an upside play. He might get you 6 points and you'll be happy, I guess, but there's no upside, I think, right now with Zach Ertz, especially with all the mouths to feed in that offense. So for me, Zach Ertz is he's my bust this week, or lower expectation, whatever you guys want to call it. You guys want to phone in, tell us what you want to call it. We'll change that name to it. But yeah, that's what's going to be. It's Zach Ertz, guys, for the bust this week. So I think, Chip, that's going to wrap us all up for tonight, man. That's going to be it. That's the time. So that's at the end of our show this week, man. So anything else you want to mention before we sign off?
I just want everyone to have a fabulous week 11, and hopefully you don't get out of playoff contention. Just survive 1 more week so you can lay it all on the line for Thanksgiving Thursday night matchups, because that's typically where I usually have such crazy fantasy points scored against me, and there's always someone who always goes off for Thanksgiving week. So besides that, I don't know how our podcast schedule is going next week, but hey, have a happy Thanksgiving if I don't say it next week.
Yes, we will still have our 2 podcasts, guys. The podcast for our starts and sits will be out a little earlier. So you guys will be able to enjoy that on your Thanksgiving trip, wherever you may be traveling to. If you'd like to, it should only be similar 40-minute episodes. So it will come out hopefully a day early if we can get it there. We'll have the Monday show, of course. So we'll have your fantasy needs for you guys next week as much as we can. So, but until then, guys, thanks for tuning in. Always go check out our Twitter at Coaches Fantasy. You can hit up with any fantasy questions, any start and sit, any waiver wires, any trades, whatever you need. We got you guys. And if you want to reach out to me and Coach Jib separately, you can do that at Coach Stephen P.
Hot take Concho.
Hot take Concho. Until then, guys, enjoy your week 11. Enjoy Thursday Night Football. We'll see you next Monday. And have a good one, guys.